Hey.
How goes it? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, same for me. I'm just recording on my laptop. I don't have my usual microphone. So
Oh,
let me know
cool.
if it's weird, strange audio.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I just got new headphones, so I'm not sure how the
Oh
mic
yeah.
sounds, but yeah.
Yeah, sounds pretty
What-
good.
Yeah. What's up? How are your end of year holidays?
Yeah, pretty good. I guess my whole San Diego trip was kind of like my Christmas break because my parents came down there and my sister was there too.
Right.
So that was like my holidays. And then what was nice is for like the last 2 weeks, it's been pretty much like meeting free at work. I just took like Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and New Year's Day. So those 3 days in like the last 2 weeks, but every other day I was working except for weekends. And that was nice because yeah, it was just like no meetings, no interruption, and just me sort of building like basically the UI of this project that I'm working on. And that was a fun time just sort of learning, like, brushing up my skills on React.js and learning a bit more and putting things together and feeling like I'm getting a good foundation started for this project. So that was actually a pretty fun holidays.
Nice. Yeah, do you feel like
Yeah.
you have the tools and skills that you can just kind of work on it independently and make good progress?
At the moment, yeah, they had a designer that made a great design. So the first step was sort of just like replicating a bunch of the visuals that they've created, all the like just the look and feel of like buttons and stuff like that, and the spacing of the app and the different pages. So that was like pretty straightforward. I just had to like translate the Figma design into a basic like code application. So that was like not so much thinking and just like translating the design, and that was a really fun, like, smooth process. And then I guess it gets a bit harder from here as I decide like how to store the data and what the types are and what the how the information is passed around the app. Uh, and it's fairly complicated. So it's like I think it's like the perfect level of challenge in terms of picking a good way to structure the data so that everything can be achieved clearly in the code. But it's fun to have like complete control over that at the moment. Like nobody else is, sort of giving their opinion. Like it's sort of like me to come up with the first draft of everything, which is it's pretty fun to have that ability, the freedom.
Nice. Yeah,
Mm.
that's cool. That's yeah, a good work setup. Sounds like.
Yeah, and I find uh, React really like surprises me sometimes in terms of like I forget if you said how familiar you are with the intricacies of it or something, or the
Assume
concepts.
assume
Yeah.
nothing. Yeah, it's minimal.
Yeah, the I guess I would say the way like you sort of define state in React.js, and then there's a certain way that you modify the state, and then you can just sort of define like what is displayed in a way that like you basically like say you have like some text. The text can be like state, and obviously whenever you change the text, like the view, like you've just told it like where to put that text in the view, and so whenever it changes, like it just re-renders. But it can get very like complicated where like you're showing and hiding entire elements of the page, and like you're rendering like lists of items, or like change, like you can sort of really connect the what is rendered and the state in whatever way you want, and then you just have to change the state. And as soon as you like once you have that relationship built, you just like make changes to the state and the view correctly renders it. And that feels often like very satisfying and magical to me, because it's almost like you sort of wire things up, and then before you know it, you're just doing these like complicated manipulations to the state based on whatever you want, like user input or anything. And then the view just sort of keeps up and shows you what should be getting showed. Uh, and it when it all like snaps together, it just feels like very powerful, and you can just kind of like there's a way of defining like a component that is like one aspect of the page that like takes state as like an input, and you can sort of move those around in the application or like make multiple of them. and just if as long as you pass them the state they need, like they'll do their job correctly, and that's just like a very satisfying feeling, and it just feels like you can it just kind of hides a lot of complexity in a nice way, and but it feels very like powerful and flexible. So I have like a lot
Nice.
of fun, yeah, with that.
Yeah. Yeah. The like, uh, yeah, hiding complexity, I feel like is a good feature with web development in particular, maybe. But yeah, I feel like, yeah, I don't know, like in, um, I used to work mostly in like big data processing systems.
Yeah.
Um, and like, uh, yeah, I don't know. It's like thinking about things in terms of um, state. Like, I feel like for the like data engineering side of things, like yeah, I guess you need to think more in terms of like the possible states and but and for like designing the data structures or whatever. But mostly I feel like it was like thinking like, okay, like this is the workflow, like this is the like this process and this process, this is how the data flows and everything. I don't know. I feel like there's like two like ways of this is all very rusty for me, but I and probably wrong formulation, but like the two ways of thinking about like most computer science sciencey problems in the real world or whatever is um like how does the data like flow like versus like I don't know, state oriented, like I guess object oriented. Yeah, I don't know. It's a it's an interesting uh like yeah, multiple ways to approach these problems. Sounds like React is like very opinionated about like um you think of everything in terms of state and components, and um we'll figure
Yeah.
out the rest for you.
Yeah, it feels I guess it is, yeah, like I think one of the words is like declarative, where like you sort of
Mm,
just declare what should happen, and that's what I
right.
think D3, like D3 is like the charting library, or it can make graphs, it like manipulates stuff. And that's very like declarative. Like it's pretty cool with D3 as well. It sort of has the same feeling where like you have like a certain amount of data, but then in D3 you just say like if you want a bar chart, you're like, well, I want like rectangles, and there should be a rectangle like at each like x value or whatever, and the height of the rectangle should be like equal to the this amount of like whatever reference you have into the data. And then like just as soon as you've said that like there should be rectangles and their heights should be equal to like this dimension in the data or whatever, then like there just
Mm,
will be rectangles. But then the thing is like as you get more data, like it's like all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, now I can just add data to this array and there just will be more rectangles. Or like I can change the heights of the rectangles in the data and the heights will change to fit like in real time in some cases, like in the chart. And it's just sort of that like magic of like it's like, oh, I was just trying to get like graphics on the screen, but now there's this like like a binding or even a two-way binding in some cases where you're like, now I can like change a rectangle height and that'll change the data, or change the data and the rectangle will change. And then you realize like you could make a totally different like part of the web page that just is aware of that same state. Uh, and now if you make a change in that other part of the web page, like the graph will change to accommodate it. Like you could have a user like adding or removing data and the chart will just react to it. And it just feels like you're getting this like free functionality that like not only things are not like static or whatever, they're connected in like a real way where new things become possible that are sort of fun and surprising as you build stuff.
that's really cool. Yeah. Yeah, it sounded like yeah, the declarative thing reminds me of like when I did you ever learn Kubernetes in
No,
your
I never. I just know like sort of. it's intended to manage like multiple containers, and then each container is like a abstraction of a server or something
Yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, just like yeah, virtualizing containers, yeah, and all that. And like yeah, I feel like I don't know. I guess it was probably like 2019 when I like had learned like Kubernetes and Docker and all that. And like I remember thinking like this is kind of magic. Like for
Right.
Kubernetes in particular, it's just like the abstractions, the layers of abstraction where you can just like declare this. You can write this YAML file that's like not very long, and like you
Yeah.
spin it, it'll spin up like 1,000 processes that are like sort of all doing what you want it to do, and it's like whoa, okay, you have to like I don't know, be careful almost, but
Yeah, that's the
yeah,
fun. Like, yeah, because especially the emphasis on like, it's just a few like a few lines of text or a few characters, and then you get this like outsized response to
right,
that. That really feels like, yeah, that feels like we're welding a lot of power in like a few characters that we type. We can make like big things like happen or move. Uh, yeah,
yeah,
another thing, like I'm writing a lot of like CSS code, I guess, to like style the UI, but I'm using a framework called Tailwind, and Tailwind also feels like going to the idea of like typing a few characters and having that have an effect. Tailwind lets you write CSS by just writing, like adding classes to like an element. So that what that looks like is like you have like your div element in the HTML page or whatever, and you want to have like if you want that div to have like padding, or like a background color or etc. uh, like normally you'd have to write some CSS code that's like padding is like 16 pixels, but Tailwind lets you just write like a shorthand class that's just like p dash like, and then whatever number you want the padding to be, and then all of a sudden like that element will have padding. And so then
mm,
that starts to be like you'll have an unstyled like element, and then you're like, oh, I want like a border with a radius, and so you're just writing like, rounded dash MD, and that just means like round the border to a medium amount, and then like, like BG dash like blue is like background color is blue, and so you're just like writing out this like shorthand of like the background color, the borders, the padding, and then as you just like type those few characters, then it takes like the element like takes shape, and uh, it gets the padding, and it just everything like, if the spacing, because I was sort of following a design, so like the spacing snaps into place, and then the design like looks like the original mockup, and
mm,
that's just like a fun. Yeah, it just feels like you have control of how things look by just writing out a short sentence, like little description of characters, and then all of a sudden you have the thing like the color and the look you want.
yeah. That sounds really satisfying, especially with like the visual element, uh, like immediate feedback. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, that feeling of power, that's like such a good way to put it. I feel like that's like a huge part of the appeal of like computer science in general. It's just like, yeah, you can sort of make things uh like happen pseudo magically. Like I'm
Yeah.
like very much the type of developer who like uh it's like oh if when given the option of like, oh, you could like, do this manual task that'll probably take 10 minutes, that you probably will only have to do once, or you could, try and automate it like on the off chance you'll ever have to do it again. And that might take an hour. It's like, well, I'll probably automate it. Yeah, I don't know. It's just that like, yeah, I think that, yeah, part of it is like the, like, oh, you don't want to, I think is good where it's like you want to like make good tools for yourself and everything, but um and not have to like yeah, the like urge to DevOps um and not repeat work. But yeah, I think a lot of it is that like it is an emotional thing. Like uh more than uh I would like used to admit, I guess.
Mm.
Yeah.
There is a
Like
certain like threshold though. Uh,
mm,
like at a certain threshold, like the abstractions almost kind of take over, and then I feel like I can't. Uh, like maybe yeah, I never had like a reason to learn like Kubernetes, for example, but I learned like Docker to do like Docker allowed me to do like one server in a way that I could run like a description of a container on my local computer or like on a server and it would be the same. So that was
yeah,
like fun for a while. But there was after a while like Docker had a certain weight to it and it had these exceptions and it got like a bit complicated or something. So then I did go
yeah,
back to like just writing just pure like Node.js like servers or something. Uh,
totally. Yeah, it's like
and
if you
certainly,
don't need
yeah,
it, it's like
yeah,
way too complicated to just add randomly.
yeah, yeah. It feels almost like yeah, there's something there. Like it's too much power, or there's not enough relationship between like things are done too easily or something. And I almost like I want to get like almost like a little bit of a workout in or something. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
mhm.
yeah. I could like yeah. It's some yeah. It's weird to talk about because it's like it is all in a digital realm, you know. But it's like there is a big difference. Like to uh, I struggle to think of a good example, but like to try and find like a one click solution to something versus like sort of coding up the thing yourself in Python or whatever, and then like knowing exactly how it works. And yeah, I don't know, being able to change it easily.
Yeah, actually, another example is like with React.js, like other people have made components. Like one of the more complicated components is called like a data grid. And like if someone gives you like a data grid component, you can just like drop the name data grid in your app and then pass it like some data and it'll like render the data as like rows and columns. And then like all
Mm,
the columns will be sortable and you'll have like a search bar, you can filter stuff. And like all you had to do was like import the component and then give it the data and it'll just handle like displaying it as a table. But then of course, if you want to like modify that, it can get like complicated and stuff if you're working with like someone else's component that's like very like maybe they've given some affordance to customize it, but if not, you really have to like dig into it and see if you can modify it in the way that you want.
right.
Versus uh, like something that I recently did was like implement like a simple data grid and I liked how it came out and I like understood it like all the way. Like it has there's no like external dependency or like some component libraries have like a fee you have to pay if you want to use their stuff.
Mm,
And there's licensing and everything. So it's nice to like write something from scratch and feel like you totally understand it and you can like extend it. But then there is I will hit these like thresholds of complexity. Like data grids can get like very complicated with the sorting and filtering, and you can have like virtual rows. Like as you scroll, the rows that are not visible will be like deallocated and allocated, and that's like a fancy way to have like you can have like 4,000 rows, but only like 20 are shown actually for real on the page at a time
mm,
because the ones that are not, it's more efficient to like not render the non-visible ones. But that would be like something that's hard to implement and probably like beyond me at the moment. So then that would be a reason why I like have to use a component from somewhere else. And but yeah, at some point it sort of is. It's like this trade-off between like uh, like I feel like I have to spend more. Like the only way I'll get to a place where I can write these components of like arbitrary complexity is by like almost like getting in shape by like writing a bunch of data grids that are slightly more complicated each time and then eventually
yeah.
I'll get there. But yeah, I could never like I feel like I can't like read a textbook or like watch like a educational video and then like know how to do it. I feel like my style of learning is like redoing the same like simple data grid a bunch of times until I almost get like bored of writing that same one and then I start to like simplify it and tweak it and I get more comfortable with the basics and then I can start extending it. Uh, that's sort of the like the I feel like my style of learning process.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. That makes total sense. Yeah, I think yeah, learn. sort of similarly, or yeah, I'm definitely like yeah, but yeah, I'm also like a real like just like I feel like if I'm like learning something, I'm just like I'll daydream about it. Like it's like same thing with like chess. Like I like growing up like learning chess. It was like okay, like I'll just like randomly sort of like go over all my openings in my head or uh yeah, it just like becomes like this ambient background um process helps my brain. But yeah, the complexity, like deciding when to use external dependencies and stuff, like reminded me of like Godot add-ons, where like I haven't like I feel like I've looked at different Godot add-ons and like yeah, most of them I'll like import in and use for a little bit, and then I'll like realize I would rather just like sort of start from scratch. But I guess it's a good point of reference usually. Um, except for there is one that's called, I forget what it's called. It's like the best terrain editor
Oh, yeah.
one, and that one I'm like because I initially started like I just made like a sort of procedural terrain where you that didn't really have physics interactions, so it's like that was fine. But then I was like, okay, I want to make sort of this like, so I have this like little like model of the like height map for San Francisco, and I like want to use that, and I want to be able to for the player to like run around a little bit. Um, and I was like, oh, actually, like I need the terrain editor now because there's just like so like because it needs to be able to um like know where the player is to make that part of the terrain have physics, but not any of the other parts of the terrain, and to like render everything with the right level of detail. Um, and it's like, oh, that's already like more complexity than like I would be able to do on my own time for this project. Like that would take me like you know like months to to implement. So yeah, I don't know. That's like the first I think add-on that Godot add-on that I found that I felt like I simply cannot replicate this.
Yeah, it seems fairly. I wouldn't even associate that functionality with like a terrain editor because I was thinking at first I was thinking if I need to make like complicated terrain, I would want to do it maybe in Blender and then import it
Yeah.
because then it's like the skill that I'm building is in Blender and then I can make terrains that I can import to anywhere. But as soon as I feel like I'm building skill in a tool that's like a Godot tool, there's a plugin to Godot. It feels like it's at least it's locked to Godot, and it's also like as soon as I stop using Godot or the plugin goes away or I do something else, the skill that I invested kind of goes. All I can take is like the knowledge of what I was doing, and I don't really know I can't have the technical skill. But
Hmm.
uh, but even if you made something in Blender, I don't. This thing seems like a terrain like optimizer where it looks at the terrain and then like smartly figures out how to do like local physics on just one part of it.
Yes, yeah, yeah, it's both. Yeah, terrain editor is a little misleading because yeah, I think that's like its main billing. Like yeah, it's called I'm just looking now. Um, Terrain 3D by Tokusan Games. I think that's the right one. Yeah. And it's yeah, like the main thing is editing stuff, but yeah, I'm not even using that. I'm just importing the height map. But yeah, like you said, yeah, all this optimization and um, yeah, in particular the physics stuff. It's like I'm like, oh, that's more than I want to figure out. So I think yeah, it would probably work for your use case of like making it in Blender and then importing it. Um, as long as yeah, you could import or the height map of the terrain as well, I guess. I'm not sure.
I wonder if there's like if you have like a smooth, continuous, like rolling terrain, and if you have like the player is at like some XY location, and then you just have like three rays that shoot like straight down that are in like a triangle formation around the player, such that whenever the player is like moving around, you're sampling like three height points on the terrain. Then you
Mm.
use those three, like once you have those three data points, you can calculate like the gradient of the terrain where the player is by like averaging the height of the three like ray samples. And then if you make like a flat plane that has that gradient, then when the player is like standing where they're standing, the thing under them will be like the right slope. And then as they move around, they'll just be like a flat plane underneath them that's like changing slope or gradient. And the player will like correctly, like under the player's feet will always be like correct. And it'll just be based
Yeah,
on the gradient.
yeah, that's an interesting yeah solution that might simplify that wouldn't require um all this optimization and stuff. Yeah, that's
I guess
interesting. Yeah.
maybe it wouldn't work for like a wall though. If you run into a wall, that would be different. You'd have to like detect that
Right.
you'd have to like do one plane for the feet and then have some kind of proximity detection for like a wall that shows up or something.
Yeah. Yeah, like if you want to do any physics stuff outside of that specific boundary then I think you need the Godot physics engine operational, like
I
hooked
wonder
up.
how they're doing it though. Like, so is your terrain like a fairly smooth height map, and like you have like a player character, and they're just like, as far as you can tell, the physics are just perfect, as if there was like a smooth collider everywhere, but obviously for like performance indicates that they're doing something like smarter than that.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like they have just figured out they sort of they split the terrain into like uh
Oh,
chunks
oh yeah,
and then
tiles or something. Yeah.
yeah, and then activate those, I guess. And um
Mm.
yeah, the one the one thing I ran into was when I imported the height map. It's like it's like just like a series of little cliffs, um because it's like uh I guess from my
Right.
data source it's like you can only be it's like the top down view. Yeah, I guess you could probably imagine. But yeah, so I need to figure out how to add some like randomness or something, or just like sloping to make it not do that. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll just have to manipulate, do some Python or something, manipulate the height map directly. Um, and then yeah, because once it gets imported into their add-on system, then it becomes a thing of like I actually don't understand exactly how it works, so it's like very hard for me to modify that. So it's like I need to make the height map perfect before the import. Like I can't I don't know. It feels like it'll be too much to modify their code to get that working, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Another thing I wanted to ask was do you feel like React, um, you could use it for your other creative work projects, like game dev or otherwise? Um, yeah.
Yeah, the only issue I have with it is like it in the past, at least it's been like a very rapidly advancing ecosystem, so like every time you come back to it, there's a bunch of new like techniques, and there's like several different like providers of React that have like different routing systems, so like the way you navigate between pages and stuff is like slightly
Mhm.
different. And so like I'll run into this thing where like currently I started designing my personal website in like in one of the flavors of React JS, and then I tried to just like quickly put it up on GitHub Pages, but I was getting like 404 errors, and like the paths weren't correct. And I think I determined that like the way that a well, now there's two big ways that a React.js app works. One of them is all the data for the entire site is just in one bundle on the client. And when you visit like different paths in the browser, uh, React is just like React always not like it sends every path. Like you can do like if you hit the root, like a slash is the, let's say slash is like the root of the app, and then if you said like slash something else, that would be like a different page. But it would actually send that entire root just to like the one index file, and then it would virtually like figure out what components to like render as if you're on a different page based on that root. But the problem with like something like GitHub Pages is that that's like a static site host. So when you give GitHub Pages a root, it tries to navigate to like a real folder somewhere, and then it like doesn't find that folder and it 404s. So uh, there's sort of like so in order to like often to host like a React app properly, you need to like run your own server so that all of the requests come into like the server, and then the server can take every path and just kind of hand it to React as a full thing, and then React can determine like what to do, independent of like the folder structure or whatever. Uh,
Mm.
so then there was this thing where like you either have to change like and it's fairly easy to swap out like the routing technology, but in the framework that I was using didn't have the option to use the certain routing technology. So then because there's actually a funny thing where uh yeah, I guess it's like a fractal. It gets like more and more complicated. There's all these different versions of React and how they treat
Mm.
routing. But it was sort of like it was like you should implement like a custom 404 page that changes the URL. Like when it 404s, it redirects to like the root, but preserves like the path name as like a get argument or something, and then
That seems
React will
weird.
yeah, and then it's like at the root of your React app, like receive that and then hand it off. And the doc said like that was kind of a pretty hacky way to go about hosting on GitHub Pages,
Yeah.
but then there's actually like other like the one I'm using is called React Router, which just really wants to be dynamically hosted and can't and has you have to like hack it to get it to statically host. But then there's a totally different provider of React, which is like called Next.js. And with Next.js, you can just build your app into a static app. Like whatever your roots are, it will build it and create like folders and stuff to accommodate those roots, and then
Mm.
it will work as like a static site. Uh, and then the reason, yeah, so that's like a whole complexity of like from a programmer's perspective, like writing the site and building the site is like really fun, but then hosting it is like kind of annoying and sort of error prone to host it.
Yeah.
And then, a couple months later, like when you come back to like maintain the site, you'll get all these like, node module and version issues, and like the hosting provider will update its like Node.js version, and then you'll have to like figure out that something broke, or uh like at one point I was on like a free trial of some of like font awesome icons in my personal site, and then that ended, and then when I went to update the site, I could no longer like build with the icons. Like I hit like a paywall, so I had to like swap them out.
Oh,
And it was just kind of there's like these crazy things that uh but it's kind of it's a bit of feels like a bit of a trap in that sense, because it's so fun to like develop with, and it works so well when you're developing in a short amount of time. But then yeah, there's just these fractal like sort of communities and hosting and everything that make it like if you have a bunch of old like if all my past projects were React.js, I would have like I would have like class components and function components and like different routing systems, and like every time I went into a past project, it would be like a different way that the whole thing is structured, and it wouldn't be like it would just be like arbitrary JavaScript anyways. There wouldn't be like any sort of unifying React thing. So that kind of
mm.
makes it, yeah, that's sort of the like the abstraction and like the power coming back to bite you. Like every time you're making use of that, like, you can just type a few characters and you get this power, then you're also like, it becomes like a little bit less reliable to just have it work without issue in the future. Uh,
Yeah.
so that's like my struggle. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just that sounds very stressful. Yeah. I sort of my I never had to use like too much JavaScript uh at at work, but my like sort of bare impression of it, like just like more vanilla JavaScript, I guess, is like, or not, or just not using like React, was that it's like even more like House of Cards, or um, like like this, pyramid of dependencies, even compared to, I don't, like Python and other languages and ecosystems. Like it was like, yeah, I don't know, like it got pretty intense with the number of libraries and dependencies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's weird. And there's even a whole like there's like two different there's like an old way and a new way to import modules in JavaScript, and you'll always run into like every library or thing you use will like expect the other way, and uh that it's like a very it's like such a fun ecosystem because everyone's got like, the ability to run JavaScript on their computer, and
Yeah.
it's it's pretty forgiving like with, when you don't have types, it's just very fun to just throw data around and transform it and stuff. But yeah, if it once it gets large at all, or you start using these frameworks, and then it sort of builds back the fragility and the unshareability of like code back into it, which is kind of too bad.
Right. Right.
I feel like in my mind, it's like I've sort of given up that like, we're never going to have like one golden path to like write code to make a web app that like works everywhere and is like well thought out and fun both for in the programming phase and like the maintaining phase, that like everyone sort of agrees as like a common standard. Uh, and so then at the moment, I feel like I'm just like, okay, I'll pick like an arbitrary provider of React and just kind of learn that. And in my mind, while I'm programming, I'll just pretend that like this is the native way. Like when I'm writing code
Uh,
that's going to make a website, I'll just pretend like I'm not on top of a huge abstraction of like things that are serving me like a bunch of modules. I'll just pretend like this is the native language that like works directly on the web with nothing else, and that everyone can use. And that's like a fun thing to pretend. And so it does make development like very fun. And then there's like I think that no matter what, like the maintenance will always be bad, and code will always be like so hard to maintain, and it'll be like bit rot sort of thing where stuff fails after a while. But that's
yeah.
since I feel like that it's just like humans are not coming together in a code way to like address that. So there's nothing. It's not like no one's aware of that problem, or no one wants to fix it. It's just like not doesn't seem like a fixable problem. So might as well just enjoy the development and then
Yeah.
just
Enjoy the
and then
process.
keep in mind, yeah, that like none of these projects are going to last forever anyway, and it doesn't really matter if people will be employed in the future to like write new versions with from scratch or something.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think of yeah, like there's that one like XKCD comic about like the path to writing like good code or whatever, and it like the punchline is that like there is no path because it's like, yeah, like either I don't know, you try and like optimize it, but then like the project direction changes, or in 6 months, or you just like write it hacky and it's like not good. um but yeah, I feel like there I guess there is like a positive spin on the idea of like there not being uh like universality to code, where it's like, yeah, I don't know, there's something about the idea of like all these different approaches, like being like generative and like creative, and like less susceptible to like the negatives of centralization, I guess. Like if there was just like, yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
someone
know.
would own it. Yeah, whatever the standard is, someone would like come to own it,
Right.
and then
Right.
yeah, we'd all be like paying a fee.
Yeah. Like it's even like I don't know, like there's like the whatever like W3 nonprofit consortium that sort of like I think there are, these like big organizations that like try to create some standards, like particularly for things like the web, I guess, which is important. Um, but like, yeah, people don't need to like they're just suggestions, I guess. Like, um, yeah, I don't know. And I guess yeah, like maybe this will become less true as like corporations sort of merge and try to centralize everything and whatever. But so yeah, maybe there's like some beauty in the fact that it's like they're just there is no standard. Things will stop working constantly. You just have to keep remaking things. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there is I think yeah, it's a good like thought to have because yeah, it feels almost like our brains are not designed to like find the value in inefficiency. I feel like we're all we could like we're
Yeah,
so wired to think like how can we make things more efficient and like get what we want now and just we sort of assume like it's like oh people are like us they'll be good or like people will be like continue to make good decisions that benefit everyone but uh yeah I feel like the more like the smarter we get we're able to like see the value in like the diverse yeah it's like yeah it's almost like short-term survival is like standardization and making things efficient and like having one way is like short-term survival and efficiency but then like long-term survival is like diversity and stuff and it's so hard like I guess our brains have trouble getting past like thinking past like the short-term survival and thinking like long-term where it's like counterintuitive where we have to like make things not efficient to ensure better like long-term survival and more like resiliency in the future but it's sort of
yeah,
what it looks like yeah it's like what it looks like day to day is like slowing down for no good reason or something.
yeah, yeah. I think that is like a interesting like dialectic or paradox or whatever. Like, yeah, thing that is in contradiction, but like, uh, yeah, is like an important thing to think
Yeah,
about. Yeah.
it's fascinating though the places that concept shows up like I was just thinking of like I just listened to like the min max like 210s them like making the list and sorting out what's the top 20 games
Mm.
and they kept bringing up this year they mentioned it a lot more that like the list is based on passion and that's almost what showed up primarily like a lot of times in their discussion was just trying to weigh like who is the person that has more passion for the game that they like and they wanted to sort the list based on like amount of passion that each game generated for like someone uh, and that was very interesting like because they in like inside discussions they talked about should it be done a different way like should we try to determine what is the better game instead of going with passion and various like cohorts like shot that down saying that it should remain based on like individuals passion uh, but that is also it sort of feels like it's like well surely there's like an objective ranking of which games are more fun but it's like I think we know that there isn't like different people resonate with different games like different amounts and uh it is pretty fascinating to just sort of sort like create the list in terms of like who had a good time with what and how good was that time versus like trying to do something like more objective which seems like silly like why would what does it mean to like there's no it's just about people liking games, and that so like the passion thing kind of cuts closer to what this is all really about. Like it is about people having a good time, and it's not even about like the listener. Like I guess they also do the community 210s, so that's more of like a ranking of what a greater community is like passionate about or something. But I
Yeah.
thought that's interesting.
Yeah. I listen to those two. Like, yeah, I like, but the only thing like I really uh appreciate about like the rest is like fine. Like they're also like really funny most of the time, which is fun. But like the thing that I like come there for is just the like impassioned speeches, like
Yeah.
did you
The Jeff from
like the
Baby
Jeff
Step
and
speech.
baby steps. Yeah, I was thinking of
Yeah.
you and I was listening to that. I was like, yeah, and that was just such an amazing speech. Like I was like, like I want to have an experience like that with a game. It's so yeah,
Yeah, I felt when he started the speech, I was sort of like, I was like, yeah, I was like rooting for him. I was like, yeah, go. And but then he started kind of slow and seemed like a bit like, uh, almost like shy to come out and say it. And I was
uh,
like, oh, he's like, like I was like, go, go, go. And then by the end of it, he was like really sort of
yeah,
making some points. And I was like, yeah, like that was a fairly good like I'm glad he had that experience and spoke to it, because certainly like yeah I feel like that's a daunting task, like having to like to a room of people that didn't have the experience with it. It's scary to like try to communicate, but I feel like yeah he in the
yeah,
end he did like a good full speech, and that was nice.
yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, I like that. I like I don't know. Forget. I think it was like Leah talked about keep driving and like, yeah,
Yeah,
those
Keep
are
Driving was interesting too. I was going to mention that because that was a game. Several people had said like they either had the experience with it or didn't. And like I think
right.
Janet and Isaiah, they said like it was either like one or the other. Janet or Isaiah had a good experience with it, and one of them like didn't. Or no, I guess I was listening to the gang, like Janet's. It's called the Gang Cast, where it's her and Isaiah,
Oh yeah,
and I think they were divided. Like one of them got into it, one of them didn't, and then they concluded with like they should play it together because and that's like that's a mystery to me too, is like sometimes people do have that experience with a game and I just can't find like a pathway to it. And so
mm,
then the question comes up of like it's like what are they like when they're presented with things in the game and options and choices, like what are they seeing that like for example I'm not seeing, is like sort of a mystery. It's like why are they in it so wholly, and then another person is like can't find a way to resonate with it. That's like a
yeah,
fascinating question.
yeah. It is. Yeah, really interesting. Like what art resonates and yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, I feel like yeah, it's like those. I could listen to people just like talk about like games that moved them all day. Like or
Yeah.
art that moved them in general. Like, yeah, I really like that. I feel like they also like I don't know. One thing that I thought was kind of funny was like they were like okay, we're gonna like measure by passion, and like for the number one picks, like I think that is like totally true. Like the fact that the baby steps got to number two, this based off one person loving it so much, and then everybody else mostly did it.
Yeah.
Like uh, yeah, the number ones have a chance to climb it like that, but then for everything else, it just became like a pseudo mathematical like like I enjoy the discussion still, but it was always like okay, poll like who's is this their number two, like is this person's number eight, so then they were
Yeah.
just like they were just recreating like a less objective mathematical list, which like I don't care about the order of the list, so it's like
Yeah.
no sweat up my back, but I just thought that was kind of funny and like yeah, I don't know.
There's a thing with yeah, like I was gonna mention too that the like I guess I've never played like a Final Fantasy game. I've just sort of seen it a lot in pop culture. and then I've also not played Expedition 33. But I
Same.
after they
Yeah.
talked about like when they were talking it up, I went and I watched like someone on YouTube. They summarized like the whole Expedition 33 story.
Ooh, I've
And but
avoided spoilers thus far mostly.
yeah,
I skipped over all of it.
well, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. I didn't really come away with much. And because I've never played Final Fantasy or Expedition 33, in my mind they blend together because like
Mm,
when I look at like a quick trailer or a screenshot of either, it's like okay, yeah, it's like, characters in fairly fancy clothing, decent like animations, the cutscenes look similar, the battles look similar. The story does seem like the way it's like an epic story centered around characters and relationships and families, but also you have this like surrealism of like, things are in the world or that like shouldn't be there, like just from seeing different kinds of the characters and stuff that are in these games. It's sort of like this hyped up like fantasy world, but it's grounded in like the human experience. And so in my mind it's like Expedition 33 is Final Fantasy. And for whatever, like I've never been able to sort of find a way to sit down and play a Final Fantasy game, but it sort of feels to me like, yeah, it's like, it's the piano like sort of aristocrat music and
uh-huh.
like the band of characters that everyone's got the love interest or the hunky guy, and like the combat is kind of real time, kind of turn based, which I've never investigated like if that kind of combat is fun. And the story is always like really weaving in a way where like there's these dramatic moments, but you have to contextualize them in so many layers that it's like everyone, like no one can play the game and understand the story. They just feel like something grand is going on, and that was a cool moment. And then like there's lore there if you want to dig into it. There's like many layers and it's confusing. uh and so I feel a bit this like this is just a rant, like a take that's definitely not true because I just have not played Final Fantasy or Expedition 33 at all. But it just feels like this is the kind of game that Triple A has like settled on as like
Mm,
tricking people to be like, it's like, this kind of music and those kind of characters and this kind of story uh, makes people believe that like something really profound is there. But then it's also like, and guess what? Like the people, like I don't know the details, but like the people that made Expedition 33 probably like were like, I don't know if this is literature, but like from the teams that made Final Fantasy. And what did they do? Like they made a game that's kind of like Final Fantasy but with a few tweaks. So like
yeah.
every journalist and gamer that played it was like, this feels refreshingly familiar because it is. It's Final Fantasy with different characters and like a fresh twist on it. And like, what does everyone want every couple of years? But like a surprise Final Fantasy game. And it was sort of like, it's like that's the formula. And but I don't like that. Certainly that works in like a Marvel movie blockbuster. Like here's the big franchise that everyone is like really read into and knows how to work. And so then if you give them like a Marvel movie but with a little twist, audiences are gonna like it. And but you're never. I just feel like nothing. It kind of gets to the point where it's like, but nothing groundbreaking is gonna happen. Like it's gonna be
Mm,
a triple A like delivered experience that everyone's going to come away liking, but that can never be like interesting uh because of how it's maybe like almost like uh by definition like it appeals to so many people, it cannot be a niche hit. Like it can never speak to an individual in the way that like a game like Baby Steps that's divisive. Like it gives a profound experience to some and it pushes away like others cannot get into it. And that's like it's like that's doing something. And like kind of the concluding thoughts of some of the cohorts were like, every like Leo found Hitman World of Assassination and Jeffem found Baby Steps. And they were saying like, over time more people will find like their game and that will
uh-huh.
really resonate. But like you're never like a game that resonates with everyone, like resonates with no one, but it's gonna sell to everyone, it's gonna be everywhere. Uh and that seems to be like, I would be surprised if like it seems like that centralization impossibility. Like we don't want a product that resonates extremely high with every single person on the planet. That just means like we've become too centralized. And what we need is like we need to break down and have like our everyone has their little hobby and their interest and they're not the same. And that's I don't know, that seems like yeah, it seems like what we were saying before, like there's value in that and like that's more interesting than working towards like the one game that no one has any complaints on or something. But yeah, I
Yeah,
say all that without really knowing any details of these games or having played them at all.
yeah. No, that's a really interesting broad take that I appreciate. I think like yeah, I've played no Final Fantasy games or exited like similarly just like kind of I more for I think just like it feels a little daunting of a time commitment. Um but yeah, I don't know like I think you're totally right in the sense of like it just even if it is doing something a little different, like I think, yeah, what you said with the developers, like if my memory serves, like a lot of them are former Ubisoft developers, so like, yeah, totally, like, yeah, they're taking that, they're making something new that but familiar, that like really hits for like a lot of people, um, but yeah, it is like in no like baby steps is like way to me feels just like so new compared to from what I know of Expedition 33 like yeah it's just a swing in something that's like not totally comparable to any like I guess it's kind of like the getting over it but stuff but like to me like not really like I don't know feels different um
Yeah, even it's
but
like such an impressive iteration on that concept that it feels different. Yeah.
right. Right. Yeah, like I think like yeah, I like the um like media folks that like don't, fixate on the big releases and stuff cuz um yeah, I agree that like there's just like so much out there that just isn't celebrated that could resonate with people like so strongly and um but yeah, I think yeah, it's like it's not to me it's like it's not if the big if the big piece of media isn't um like like harmful, I guess, then it's like it can just be like a fun big communal experience that like hey everybody like kind of knows and likes this thing. Like I remember like just like watching Game of Thrones with my friends and it's not like I'm like Game of Thrones is like my favorite thing ever. Like, but I was like, this is like, good enough at least till the last season or whatever. And like, it's just like fun, and it's fun to like be able to talk about with people. Um, and then it's over, and then I don't really think about it ever again, I guess. Um, yeah, I don't know, but I think like, uh, oh yeah, I had one more thought that yeah, it's escaped me, but yeah, I think that's a good take about like, oh, my other thought was like, how for me like I I feel like I've just been exposed to like entirely new mediums of art uh in the past I don't know 5-ish years where like at some point like I couldn't tell you why but like I watched like some anime show and like before that it was just like oh all anime is the same to me like it all just kind of looks similar like it's just like and I knew that it's just like this flat experience of a thing and then I was like okay like I kind of like this and then it you know it's like oh there are like subgenres of it. Like there's like shonen and seinen and whatever and manga, and like a lot of them I don't like, and it like sort of immediately, or I'm just kind of bored by it and like immediately stop reading, but I'll just give it a shot. But then like sometimes I'll just find one that's like, you know, it's not like super different, but it's like it's different enough or like subversive enough. Like there's one recently called Free Ren, where it's sort of like the pitch is like it's like after the big quest has already happened.
Oh, cool.
Like they defeated the big bad. It's just, you know, sort of standard fantasy fare. Like there's elves and magic and uh, dwarves and, you know, wizards, whatever. Um, but it's like all done in a sort of like kind of like femme and um uh like quirky style. Um, but yeah, it's like okay, it's set after the journey, like the Lord of the Rings journey or whatever, and now like everybody else has in the party has died, and all that is left is there's one elf who was a like basically immortal, and she's like, okay, what now? And like, and then she like, you know, she has to do the quest again with like new people because like yeah something else has happened, but then it's like half of it is like her sort of remembering the 10-year quest that she went on and like trying to make meaning of it, and then half of it is like in the now with like these new people and it's just like okay it's like familiar, but this is like different enough and just like well written enough that I'm like this is something really special. So it's like I don't know, there is like some way in which maybe if I had played like all the Final Fantasy games and you know liked some, not liked others, whatever, and then something like Claire Obscure came along that was different enough, then I would be like, oh my gosh, you know, like it gets it and it's doing something more, like it's expanding this admittedly somewhat narrow genre. Yeah, I don't know. That was yeah, some thought about like yeah, the value of like genre iteration, I guess.
Yeah, I think I just want to. I would like to see, like, maybe there are, and I need to find more of them. Just like sources that can put into context all this stuff.
Uh-huh.
Like I need to be like caught up to speed at a rate faster than I can't go back and play all the games or read all the anime.
Right.
I need someone to just like explain to me the landscape and the context uh, in like some way so that I can orient myself and try to like identify pieces that I can like. And then the more I get into stuff, the more I become like experienced about what I like. But it's like pretty daunting. Stuff is so there's so much like back catalog of every media now.
Yeah.
And the ones that come out are like referencing all the others in a complicated way. And I just like to hear people like walk me through shows rather than like watch uh, or like play
Yeah.
games or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. Like, yeah, I think it was probably the same for me with like my entry points into whatever manga. And recently, my more recent medium was Western, particularly like DC comics. And like, you know, to me, it's like I just have no reason to read it, like no entry point whatsoever. Like it's so confusing because it's like I don't know, like 70 years of history just like layered on top of each other. Like it's like you know just absurdly like back cataloged. But then there was like a podcast like 52 pickup that they explained everything, you know, like in ways that I got it, and uh, yeah, it's sort of like very detailed, explained like all the references in like a very specific comic book, and then like that was just like the entry point I needed, and now it's like I, you know, I know 0.5% of the breadth of this thing, but it's like it's enough where I can hop to like I can I'm on some node of the graph and I can, hop to the next thing or like yeah, explore this next story and like I'll know like half of what's going on, but it's like yeah, it's enough to enjoy it, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's neat how that happens with things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been fun. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
we're
Well, I
past
guess
time.
yeah, I'll oh what?
I just saw we were past the
Oh
time.
yeah, we
Sorry if
hit the
I
time.
kept you
Yeah.
longer and started
Yeah,
later.
no worries. Yeah, I think that's a good conversation though. Yeah, I'm free next week. We can check in closer to then.
Yeah, me as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I can update you. I've been working on a little bit of like writing with this thing called Twine. You can like write interactive stories. So that's been fun. But yeah, we can talk about that next time.
Yeah, I might have looked at that or used that before. But yeah,
Oh,
I'll be
cool.
interested to hear more about that. Yeah.
Sounds good. All
Yeah.
right, take it easy.
Yeah, you too. Bye. Bye.